He couldn't swim. Syrinx couldn't swim. He didn't stand a chance of getting out, getting free of the knock. From her angle below, Bryce could only glimpse the bottoms of Syrinx's frantic, desperate legs as he struggled to stay at the surface. She dropped the book, the golden bubble rupturing, and tried to rise to her feet. Micah emerged from the door to the tank stairwell. His power hit her a moment later. It flipped her, pinning her face down on the carpeted stairs, exposing her back to him. She writhed, the ebbing pain in her legs secondary to the tingling numbness creeping through her blood. Syrinx was drowning. He was. Micah loomed over her. She stretched her arm out, toward the shelf. Her tingling fingers brushed over the titles. On the Divine Number, The Walking Dead, The Book of Breathings, The Queen with Many Faces. Syrinx was thrashing and thrashing, still fighting so hard. Then Micah sent a blast of white-hot flame straight into her back, into the horn. She screamed, even as the fire didn't burn, but rather absorbed into the ink, raw power filling her, flame turning to ice and cracking through her blood like shifting glaciers. The air in the room seemed to suck in on itself, tighter and tighter and tighter. It blasted outward in a violent ripple. Bryce screamed, hoarfrost in her veins, sizzling into burning agony. Upstairs, glass shattered, then nothing. Nothing. She shuddered on the ground, tingling ice and searing flames spasming through her. Micah looked around, waited. Bryce could barely breathe, trembling as she waited for a portal to open, for some hole to another world to appear. But nothing occurred. Disappointment flickered in Micah's eyes before he said, "Interesting." The word told her enough. He'd try again, and again. It wouldn't matter if she was alive or a pile of self-destructed pulp. Her body would still bear the horn's ink, the horn itself. He'd lug a pile of self-destructed pulp. He'd lug around her corpse if he had to until he found a way to open a portal to another world. She figured it out in the hours after the Crystallis' attack at the docks. When she'd seen herself in the mirror, and began to suspect that the tattoo on her back was not in the alphabet. She knew, because it was not an alphabet. Not one from Midgard. She looked again at all the locations Danica had visited the last week, and saw that only the tattoo shop had gone unchecked. She'd realized the amulet was gone, and she had been attacked, just as Hunt had been attacked by the Crystallis in the park, after he touched Danica's jacket in the gallery. Touched Danica's scent, full of the horn. Bryce strained, hauling herself against the invisible grip of Micah's power. Her fingers brushed a dark purple book spine. Syrinx, Syrinx, Syrinx. Maybe carving the horn from you will be more effective, Micah murmured. A knife hummed free from his sheath at his thigh. This will hurt, I'm afraid. Bryce's fingers hooked on the lip of the book's spine. Please. It did not move. Micah knelt over her. Please, she begged the book. Please. It slid toward her fingers. Bryce whipped the book from its shelf and splayed open its pages. Greenish light blasted from it, right into Micah's chest. It sent him rocketing back across the library, a clear shot to the open entry to the bathroom, to where Leheba waited in the shadows of the bathroom door, a small book in her own hands, whose page she opened to unleash another blast of power against the door, propelling it shut. The book's power hissed over the bathroom door, sealing it tight, locking the Archangel within. Rune had not woken up this morning expecting to watch his sister die, and his father, Rune's father, said nothing to the horror that unfolded. For 3 heartbeats, Bryce lay on the steps as the last of her legs stitched itself together, while she stared at the shut bathroom door. It might have been funny, the idea of locking a near god inside a bathroom, had it not been so fucking terrifying. A strange voice growled behind Rune. Help her. Hunt. The muscles of his neck were bulging, fighting Sandriel's grip on him. Indeed, Hunt's eyes were on Sandriel as he snarled, Help her. The metal bathroom door, even with the book's power sealing it, wouldn't hold Micah for long. Minutes, if that. And the synth in Bryce's system. How long did she have until she turned herself into bloody ribbons? Lehiba rushed over to Bryce just as Hunt again growled at Sandriel. Go stop him. No matter that even at ungodly speeds, it would take Sandriel an hour to fly there. 30 minutes by helicopter. A choking sound filled the air as Sandriel clamped down on her power, silencing Hunt's voice. This is Micah's territory. I do not have the authority to intervene in his business. Athlar still managed to get out, dark eyes blazing. Fuck you. All of Sandriel's Shari fixed their lethal attention on Hunt. He didn't seem to give a shit, though. Not as Bryce gasped to Lehiba. Get the tank's feeding dock running. The gaping wound in her thigh finally sealed shut, thanks to the synth shooting through her blood. And then Bryce was up and running. The bathroom door shuddered. She didn't so much as look back as she sprinted, still limping, for the stairs to the tank. She grabbed the knife off the ground. Micah's knife. Rune had to remind himself to take a breath as Bryce hit the stairs, ripping a piece from her torn shirt, wrapping it around her thigh to bind the knife to her. A makeshift sheath. Declan switched the feed to a small chamber atop the tank, the water sloshing through the grated floor. A 3-foot square in the center opened into the gloom, the small platform on a chain anchored to the top of the tank. Lehiba floated at the controls. It's not attacking him. The sprite wept. Sirius just limped there. He's dead. Bryce knelt and began taking swift, deep breaths. Fast, fast, fast. What's she doing? Queen Hypaxia asked. She's hyperventilating, Therian murmured back, to get more air into her lungs. Bryce, Lehiba pleaded. But then Bryce sucked in one last mighty breath and plunged beneath the surface, into the Nox layer. The feeding platform dropped with her, chain unraveling into the gloom as it raced past Bryce. She gripped the iron links, swimming down, down, down. Bryce had no magic, no strength nor immortality to shield her. Not against the Nock in the tank with her. Not against the Archangel likely only a minute away from breaking down that bathroom door. Not against the synth that would destroy her if the rest didn't. His sister, his brash, wild sister, knew all that and still went to save her friend. It's her ordeal, Flynn murmured. This is her fucking ordeal. The frigid water threatened to snatch the precious little breath from her lungs. Bryce refused to think of the cold, of the lingering pain in her healed leg, of the 2 monsters in this library with her. One, at least, had been contained behind the bathroom door. The other... Bryce kept her focus upon Syrinx, refusing to let her terror take over, to let it rob her of her breath as she reached the Chimera's limp body. She would not accept this, not for a moment. Her lungs began burning, a growing tightness that she fought against as she bore Syrinx's back toward the feeding platform. Her lifeline out of the water, away from the Nock. Her fingers latched into the chain links as the dock rose back toward the surface. Lungs constricting, Bryce held Syrinx on the platform, letting it propel them up, up. From the shadows of the rocks at the bottom, the Nock burst forth, It was already smiling. The knock knew she'd come for Syrinx. It had been watching her in the library for weeks now. The feeding platform broke the surface, Bryce with it, and she gasped down sweet, life-saving air as she heaved Syrinx over the edge and gasped to Laheba. Chest compressions. Clawed hands wrapped around her ankles, slicing her skin as they yanked her back. Her brows smashed into the metal rim of the platform before the cold water shallowed her once more. Hun couldn't breathe as the knock slammed Bryce into the glass of the tank so hard it cracked. The impact shook her from her stunned stupor. Just as the knock snapped for her face, she dodged left, but it still had his talons on her shoulder, cutting into her skin. She reached for the knife she tied to her thigh. The knock grabbed the knife from her hands, tossing it into the watery gloom. This was it. This was how she'd die. Not in Micah's hand, not from the synth in her body, but being ripped to shreds by the knock. Hun could do nothing. Nothing as it again snapped for her face. Bryce moved again, lunging not for a hidden weapon, but for another sort of attack. She punched her right hand low into the knock's abdomen and dug inside the nearly invisible front fold. It happened so fast that Hun wasn't sure what she'd done, until she twisted her wrist and the knock arched in pain. Bubbles leaked from Bryce's mouth as she wrenched its balls harder. Every male in the pit flinched. The knock let go, falling to the bottom. It was the opening Bryce needed. She drifted back against the cracked glass, braced her legs, and pushed. It launched her into the open water. Blood from her head wound streamed in her wake, even as the synth healed the gash and prevented the blow from rendering her unconscious. The platform dropped into the water again. Laheba had sent it down, a final lifeline. Bryce Dolphin kicked for it. Her arms pointed in front of her. Blood swirled with each undulating kick. At the rocky bottom of the tank, the knock had recovered, and now bared its teeth upon the fleeing woman. Molten rage gleamed in its milky eyes. "Swim, Bryce," Therian growled. "Don't look back." The platform hit its lowest level. Bryce swam. Her teeth gritted. The instinct to take a breath had to be horrendous. "Come on," Hun prayed. "Come on." Bryce's fingers wrapped around the bottom of the platform, then the rim. The knock charged up from the depths, fury and death blazing in its monstrous face. "Don't stop, Bryce," Fury Axtar warned the screen. Bryce didn't. Hand by hand, she climbed the ascending chain, fighting for each foot gained toward the surface. 10 feet from the top. The knock reached the platform base. 5. The knock shot up the chain, closing in on her heels. Bryce broke the surface with a sharp gasp. Her arms grappling, hauling. She got her chest out, her stomach, her legs. The knock's hands broke from the water, reaching, but Bryce had cleared its range, and now panted, dripping water into the churning surface beneath the grated floor. Head healed without a trace. The knock, unable to stand the touch of the air, dropped beneath the surface just as the feeding platform halted, sealing access to the water beneath. "Fucking hell," Fury whispered, running her shaking hands over her face. "Fucking hell." Bryce rushed to the unresponsive Syrinx and demanded from Laheba, "Anything?" "No, it's..." Bryce began chest compressions, 2 fingers on the center of the Chimera's sodden chest. She closed his jaws and blew into his nostrils. Did it again. Again. She didn't speak, didn't beg for any of the gods as she tried to resuscitate him. On a feet across the room, the bathroom door fizzled beneath Michael's assault. She had to get out, had to run now, or she'd be ruptured into shards of bone. Bryce stayed, kept fighting for the Chimera's life. "Can you speak through the audio?" Rune asked Declan and Jezebel. Can you patch us through? He pointed to the screen. To tell her to get the fuck out now? Out now. Sorry, no question. Jezebel said quietly, her face ashen. It's only one way. Bryce kept up the chest compressions, her soaking hair dripping, her skin bluish in the light from the tank, as if she was a corpse herself, enscrawled on her back, cut off only by her black sports bra, the horn. Even if she got free of the gallery, if she somehow survived the synth, Micah would. Syrinx thrashed, vomiting water. Bryce let out a sob, but turned the chimera over, letting him cough it out. He convulsed, vomiting again, gasping for every breath. Lahaba had dragged a shirt up the steps from one of the desk drawers. She handed it to her. Bryce swapped it with her ruined shirt before gathering the still weak Syrinx in her arms and trying to stand. She moaned in pain, nearly dropping Syrinx as her leg gushed blood into the water below. Hunt had been so focused on the head wound he hadn't seen the knock slash her calf, but the flesh visible through her leggings remained half shredded. Still slowly healing. The knock must have dug its claws into the bone if the injury was so severe the synth was still stitching it together. Bryce said, "We have to run, now, before he gets out." She didn't wait for Lahaba to reply as she managed to get upright, carrying Syrinx. She limped badly, and she moved so slowly toward the stairs. The bathroom door heated again, the metal red hot as Micah attempted to melt his way through. Bryce panted through her teeth, a controlled hiss, hiss, hiss with each step, trying to master the pain the synth hadn't yet taken away, trying to drag a 30-pound chimera down a set of stairs on a shredded leg. The bathroom door pulsed with light, sparks flying from its cracks. Bryce reached the library, took a limping step toward the main stairs up to the showroom, and whimpered. "Leave it," the Autumn King growled. "Leave the chimera." Hunt knew, even before Bryce took another step, that she would not. That she'd rather have her back peeled off by an archangel than leave Syrinx behind. And he could see that Lahaba knew it too. Bryce was a third of the way up the stairs, sparks flying from the seams of the bathroom door, across the library behind them, when she realized Lahaba was not with her. Bryce halted, gasping around the pain in her calf that even the synth could not dull, and looked back at the base of the library stairs. Forget the books, Lahaba," she pleaded. If they survived, she'd kill Jezebel for even making the sprite hesitate. Kill her. Yet Lahaba did not move. "Lahaba," Bryce said, the name in order. Lahaba said softly, sadly, "You won't make it in time, BB." Bryce took one step up, pain flaring up in her calf. Each movement kept ripping it open. An uphill battle against the synth attempting to heal her, before it would rip apart her sanity. She swallowed her scream and said, "We have to try." "Not we," Lahaba whispered. "You." Bryce felt her face drain of any remaining color. "You can't," her voice cracked. "I can," Lahaba said. "The enchantments won't hold him much longer. Let me buy you time." Bryce kept moving, gritting her teeth. "We can figure this out. We can get out together." "No." Bryce looked back to find Lahaba smiling softly, still at the base of the stairs. "Let me do this for you, BB. For you and Syrinx." Bryce couldn't stop the sob that wrenched its way out of her. "You're free, Lahaba." The words rippled through the library as Bryce wept. "I traded with Jezebel for your freedom last week. I have the papers in my desk. I wanted to throw you a party for it, to surprise you." The bathroom door began warping, bending. Bryce sobbed. "I bought you, and now I set you free, Lahaba." Lahaba smiled and faltered. I know, she said. I peeked in your drawer. And despite the monster trying to break loose behind them, Bryce choked on a laugh before she begged. You are a free person. You do not have to do this. You are free, Lahaba. Yet Lahaba remained at the foot of the stairs. Then let the world know that my first act of freedom was to help my friends. Syrinx shifted in Bryce's arms, a low, pained sound breaking from him. Bryce thought it might be the sound of her own soul. The sound her own soul was making as she whispered, unable to bear this choice, this moment. I love you, Lahaba. The only words that had ever mattered. And I will always love you, Bibi. The fire sprite breathed. Go. So Bryce did, gritting her teeth, a scream breaking from her. Bryce heaved herself and Syrinx up the stairs, toward the iron door at the top. And whatever time went by them, if the synth didn't destroy her, the bathroom door groaned. Bryce glanced back, just once, to the friend that had stayed by her when no one else had, who had refused to be anything but cheerful, even in the face of the darkness that had swallowed Bryce whole. Lahaba burned a deep, unfaltering ruby and began to move. First, a sweep of her arm upward, then an arc down, a twirl, hair spiraling above her head, a dance to summon her power. Whatever kernel of it a fire spray might have. A glow spread along Lahaba's body, so Bryce climbed, and with each painful step upward, she could hear Lahaba whisper, almost chanting, I'm a descendant of Ranthia Drawl, Queen of Embers. She is with me now, and I am not afraid. Bryce reached the top of the stairs. Lahaba whispered, My friends are behind me, and I will protect them. Screaming, Bryce shut the library door, until it clanged shut, the enchantment sealing, cutting off Lahaba's voice with it, and Bryce leaned against it, sliding to the floor as she sobbed through her teeth. Bryce had made it up to the showroom, and locked the iron door behind her. Thank the gods for that. Thank the fucking gods. Yet, Hun couldn't take his eyes off the library feed, but Lahaba still moved, still summoned her power, repeating the words over and over. I am a descendant of Ranthia Drawl, Queen of Embers. She is with me now, and I am not afraid. Lahaba glowed, bright as the heart of a star. My friends are behind me, and I will protect them. The top of the bathroom door began to curl open, and Lahaba unleashed her power. 3 blows, perfectly aimed. Not to the bathroom door and the archangel behind it. No, Lahaba couldn't slow Micah, but 100,000 gallons of water would. Lahaba's shimmering blast of power slammed into the glass tank, right on top of the crack that Bryce had made when the knock threw her into it. The creature, sensing the commotion, rose from the rocks and recoiled in horror as Lahaba struck again. The glass cracked further, and then Lahaba hurled herself against it, pushed her tiny body against the crack. She kept whispering the words over and over again. They morphed together into one sentence, a prayer, a challenge. My friends are with me, and I am not afraid. Hun wrested control of his body, enough that he was able to put a hand over his heart. The only salute he could make as Lahaba's words whispered through the speakers. My friends are with me, and I am not afraid. One by one, the angels of the 33rd rose to their feet, then Rune and his friends, and they too put their hands on their hearts, as the smallest of their house pushed and pushed against the glass wall, burning gold as the knock tried to flee to any place it might survive what was about to come. Over and over, Lahaba whispered, My friends are with me, and I am not afraid. The glass spider webbed. Everyone in the conference room rose to their feet. Only Sandriel, her attention fixed on the screen, did not notice. They all stood, and bore witness to the sprite who brought her death down upon herself, upon the knock, to save her friends. It was all they could offer her, this final respect and honor. Leheba still pushed, still shook with terror, yet she did not stop, not for one heartbeat. My friends are with me, and I am not afraid. The bathroom door tore open, metal curling aside to reveal Micah, glowing as if newly forged, as if he'd rend this world apart. He surveyed the library, eyes landing on Leheba and the cracked tank wall. The sprite whirled, back pressed against the glass. She hissed at Micah, "This is for you, Syrinx." She slammed her little burning palm into the glass, and 100,000 gallons of water exploded into the library. Flashing lights erupted, casting the world into flickering color. A roar rose from below, the gallery shuddering. Bryce knew. She knew the tank had exploded, and that Leheba had been wiped away with it. Knew the knock, exposed to the air, had been killed too. Knew that Micah would only be slowed for so long. Syrinx was still whimpering in her arms. Glass littered the gallery floor. The window to Jezebel's office shattered a level above. Leheba was dead. Bryce's fingers curled into claws at her side. The red light of the warning alarms washed over her vision. She welcomed the synth into her heart, every destructive, raging, frozen ounce of it. Bryce crawled for the front door, broken glass tinkling. Power, hollow and cold, thrummed at her fingertips. She grabbed the handle and hoisted herself upright, yanked the door open to the golden light of late afternoon, but she did not go through it. This was not what Leheba had bought her time to do. Hun knew Leheba was killed instantly, as surely as a torch plunged into a bucket of water. The tidal wave threw the knock into the mezzanine, where it thrashed, choking on the air as it ate away its skin. It even blasted Micah back to the bathroom. Hun just stared and stared. The sprite was gone. Shit, Rune was whispering. "Where's Bryce?" Fury asked. The main floor of the gallery was empty. The front door lay open, but... "Holy fuck," Flynn whispered. Bryce was sprinting up the stairs, to Jezebel's office. Only synth fueled that sprint. Only that kind of drug could override pain and reason. Bryce sat Syrinx on the ground as she entered the office, and then leapt over the desk, to the disassembled gun mounted on the wall above it. The Godslayer rifle. "She's gonna kill him," Rune whispered. "She's gonna kill him for what he did to Danica in the pack." But before she succumbed to the synth, Bryce would offer her friends nothing less than this. Her final moments of clarity, of her life. Sabine was silent as death, but she trembled wildly. Hun's knees buckled. He couldn't watch this. Wouldn't watch this. Micah's power rumbled in the library, parted the water as he plowed across the space. Bryce grabbed the 4 parts of the Godslayer rifle mounted on the wall and chucked them onto the desk, unlocked the safe door, and reached inside. She pulled out a glass vial and knocked back some sort of potion. Another drug. Who knew what the sorceress kept lying in there? And then pulled out a slender golden bullet. It was 6 inches long, its surface engraved with a grinning winged skull on one side. On the other, 2 simple words. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. They now seemed more of a promise than a mild reminder from the meat market. Bryce clenched the bullet between her teeth as she hauled the first piece of the rifle toward her, fitted the second. Micah surged up the stairs, death incarnate. Bryce whirled toward the open interior window. She threw out a hand, and the third piece of the rifle, the barrel, flew from the desk into her splayed fingers. Born on magic, she did not naturally possess, thanks to the synth coursing through her veins. A few movements had her locked into place. She ran for the shattered window, assembling the rifle as she went, summoning the final piece from the desk on an invisible wind. That golden bullet still clenched in her teeth. Hunt had never seen anyone assemble a gun without looking at it, running toward a target as if she'd done it 1,000 times. Then she had, Hunt remembered. Bryce might have been fathered by the Autumn King, but she was Randall Sulago's daughter, and the legendary sharpshooter had taught her well. Bryce clicked the last piece into place and dropped into a slide, finally loading the bullet. She careened into a stop, before the gaping window, rising onto her knees as she braced the Godslayer against her shoulder. And in the 2 seconds it took Bryce to line up her shot, and the 2 seconds it took for her to loose a steadying breath, Hunt knew those seconds were Leheba's. Knew that's what the Sprite's life had bought for her friend. Well, Leheba offered to Bryce, and Bryce had accepted, understanding. Not a chance to run. No, there would never be any escaping Micah. Leheba had offered Bryce the 2 extra seconds needed to kill an Archangel. Micah exploded out of the iron door, metal embedded in the wood paneling of the gallery. The governor whirled toward the open front door, to the trap Bryce had laid an opening, so he wouldn't look up. So he didn't have time to even glance in Bryce's direction before her fingers curled on the trigger. And then she shot that bullet right through Micah's fucking head. And she shot that bullet right through Micah's fucking head.